George Miller did something special with the visually epic Mad Max Fury Road. He's now back to give us an origin story from one of the heroes of the previous film in Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. We've got Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth leading the mayhem. So does it deliver? As the world fell, young Furiosa was snatched from the green place of many mothers and fell into the hands of a great biker horde led by the Warlord Dementus. Sweeping through the Wasteland, they come across the Citadel presided over by the Immortan Joe, and while the two tyrants war for dominance, Furiosa must survive many trials as she puts together the means to find her way home. So first off, if you go into this movie thinking you're going to get the same cadence of non-stop action and hypnotic visuals as Fury Road, you'll most likely be disappointed. Now that's not to say there aren't hugely exciting action sequences and some eye-popping visuals, but this storytelling takes a very different approach to presenting the narrative. Anya Taylor-Joy is our title character, but much like another sand-themed movie from this year, the Blue-Eyed Beauty, she isn't in the entirety of the film. Now this is very much the origin of the character that we meet in Fury Road, who's played by Charlize Theron. Now the world building here, it's amazing, but we're given so much more context for everything than we have in any of the more recent films. The Wasteland, it has true character, thanks to how much we get to see of Gastown, the Bullet Farm, and the Citadel. Now, each landscape is gritty and unique in its own ways, also with leaders who are eccentrically presented to just showcase the derangement and hubris of each. Now we follow Furiosa from a child who is taken all the way through to where she is a seasoned and deadly warrior. And so much of this is shaped thanks to the excellent performance of Chris Hemsworth as Dementus. Now at first, when I saw the trailer, I was really wondering why we were getting Thor in this film. After watching Hemsworth though in the role, he steals the show. He is just the right balance of cruel and unhinged, but not so crazy that he doesn't have logic and understanding. And he's also one of these characters who are clearly the villain, but also have some redeeming moments that inform us that their humanity hasn't been fully stripped from them. He's got small actions that showcase this underlying compassion, and he also delivers some dialogue that is surprisingly introspective and wise. Now, to make the character of Dementus, they added some prosthetics to his nose and then gave him this wild beard and mustache. And I'm not sure if anybody else has said this yet, but while watching, I leaned over to my oldest and said that the only thing I could see when I looked at Hemsworth was Dustin Hoffman in Hook. Not only with the nose and that mustache, but then there was something with the teeth that made them just slightly protrude. So if you didn't see it before, you will now, and you're welcome. Now the movie's 2 hours and 28 minutes, and unfortunately, it felt even longer. I really noticed the time in a lot of spots. And I think a lot of that is just because there are chapter markers that break up the momentum. The screen goes black, and then we're given a title screen. And this works to inform us, intentionally or not, on how long we've been watching. But then, the storytelling itself, it's patiently slow. Now part of this is because we're actually getting a well-defined and developed storyline. We have context for who Furiosa is, where she came from, and what her enduring motivations are throughout the film. While Fury Road did have kind of an escape storyline that becomes just this epically massive chase sequence, in Furiosa, the revenge story is more defined and it's impactful thanks to the background that we receive. Furiosa, she's a very sympathetic character, almost from the start, so it's easy to follow her and root for her just because she's not some vague persona we're supposed to care about simply because she's a young girl who was taken. And in this area, that's where the movie is at its best. I was fully invested in Furiosa's quest for revenge. I also appreciate how patient and calculated that she is in this pursuit. She's intelligent about her decisions and choices, not rushing with blind rage into a situation that's absolutely going to get her killed. Instead, she uses her cunning and smarts to look at all the different scenarios in front of her and then choose the one with the best likely outcome. And Taylor-Joy is stoic and quiet through so much of this, but we can see all the rage, fear, anger, and drive in her expressive eyes. And half the time, too, she's got just half her face covered, so only her eyes are visible to clue us into the emotion, and she exudes the feelings so that they are unmistakable. And then there's Hemsworth, who is just as expressive, but he's intensely demonstrative in his presentation. There's nothing subtle about his thoughts or motivations, and this is exactly what you need for a nomadic warlord of the Wasteland. Now, Immortan Joe is menacing just in the visual presence, but Dementus has a showmanship quality to him that just adds a tiny bit of quirky levity to his delivery. Before the action, it's not non-stop, But when we do get the sequences, they are frenetic, immersive, explosive, and just a lot of fun to watch. There are a lot of similarities to what we saw in Fury Road, with all the war boys taking on the acrobatic stunts that have them swinging off of trucks with explosive spears or spraying their mouths silver just before taking on a deadly activity. The camera swings in and around the action smoothly, but still in a way that captures the chaos of what's going down. The editing this time, it has a different style and feel to Fury Road. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, it's just different. If you are a fan of violence and carnage, we get a lot of that. And while there's not a ton of actual bloodshed, there are plenty of times we watch bodies get thrown under massively speeding tires to get thrown about in a violent ballet. And the use of fire and explosions, it not only adds to the excitement, but also to craft some engaging visuals with vibrant oranges and blacks. And I also had a lot of fun with the variety of vehicles that we see. Now, some are standard and what's expected, but Dementus has this chariot that he rides. And although the logic doesn't work for it, it is amazing to watch, and I really love the creativity. There's also this black flowing set piece that adds a terrifying dread and malevolence to a sequence. It's foreboding and ominous, and again, just the creativity astounded me. Now, something that did help to keep the story dragging more than it already did in places was the use of voiceover exposition from this guy called the History Man. This was used so that we could see a montage of events and gain an understanding of what's transpired, but it didn't always flow well for me. Now, I don't mind the narration at the very start of the movie to introduce us to the world, and then when we watch the History Man explain things while he's on screen, that works. But just having a random voiceover, it drew my attention away from the visuals and then reminded me of how long I'd been sitting. So overall, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, presents an immersive and detailed account of the soon-to-be hero Furiosa. Anya Taylor-Joy convincingly executes the action and drama of her character, using her big blue eyes to convey the needed emotion when the rest of her face is obscured. She can certainly lead in a demanding action role in both her physicality and passion. Chris Hemsworth shines as a hubristic warlord madman, fusing charisma, nastiness, and smarts to craft a complicated villain with some sympathetic qualities. The stylized action and effects are immersive thanks to vibrant colors and enveloping camera movements. And despite the narrative dragging in areas and the runtime being extremely noticeable, the storytelling is rich with development and meaning, captivating us with meaningful characters steeped in relatability, regardless of the surrounding environment being completely unrelatable. There is no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a ton of violence. I give Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, 4 out of 5 couches. So what's a post-apocalyptic movie that you really enjoyed? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.